Today we're going to be looking at measuring the center of data. So there are three measures of center. The first one is mode. Mode is the most frequently occurring value or class or interval in the data set. So whatever you see the most. Mean is the average of the data set. So you should be very familiar with mean. That's when you add up all the numbers and then divide by however many numbers you have. And then your median is going to be the middle value of an ordered data set. The key word here for median is ordered. Okay, you can't find the middle number until you know the numbers are in order from either least to greatest or greatest to least. Okay, so you should already know and remember from middle school that if you're finding the median, you're chopping off numbers from the outer parts of the data set until you get to the middle. Whatever number is left in the middle, that is your median. If you happen to have two numbers that are in the middle, then you have to find the average of those two numbers, then that will give you your median. Okay? So, let's do example 1. So, in order to find the mean, we're going to add all those numbers up and then divide them by however many numbers we have. So, if we have our mean here, I'm also going to give you the symbol. So your mean is the same thing as having your X and your bar over it. That is the mean. So if I want to take the sum of all those numbers, I get 113. And I'm going to divide that by however many numbers I have, which is 21. And when I divide that, I end up getting 5.38. Okay, so that is my mean. The next thing that I want to do is I want to find my median. Well, in order to find the median, your numbers have to be organized from least to greatest. Okay, and when we find it in the calculator, median is the same thing as having MED. Okay, your median is MED. So what I want to do is I want to organize my numbers from least to greatest. So I'm going to have the following. 3 is written 4 times. 4 is written 3 times. 5 is written twice. 6 is written twice. 7 is written twice. 8 is written 3 times. And then 9 is written 3 times. Okay? So as we can see here, when we find the median, we're literally going to cross over it. We're going to cross them out as we go. So we're going to say like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 1, 2. And there. 5 is the only number left in the middle. So 5 is our median. Last but not least, we have our mode. Mode is whatever number appears the most. And if you look at the numbers from least to greatest, you should have seen that the number that appeared the most was 3, because 3 appeared 3 times. So let's say we want to use the calculator. We're going to press stat, press edit. All of those numbers need to go on L1. Be careful when you're typing your numbers into L1, because what you don't want is to mess up on a number, because if you throw a number in the data set that does not belong there, it will throw off what your results are supposed to be. Okay, so when I press stat, I go over to calc, press number 1 for one variable statistics, and then you're going to press calculate. And as you can see here, my mean is denoted by the X with the bar over it. That mean is 5.38. Excuse me. I don't know why it's doing this. Okay, my mean is 5.38. And then if you scroll down, you will see MED for median. The median is 5. So what I'm going to do here is we're going to check these off. So that is right, and the median is 5. Now you may be wondering, does the calculator give you the mode? It does not, because you should be able to look at a data set and determine what the mode is. Okay. So example 2. Go ahead and clear the calculator. So example number 2, we need to find the mean, median, and mode. So as you can see here, one thing that is different is that not only do I have data values, but I have what we call frequencies. The word frequency means to tell how much of something you have. So this data value here, the data value 3, that means if I were to write this in a list, and you do not have to write this, if I have 3 here, I see that 3 is only going to appear one time. 4 is only going to appear one time. 5 is going to appear 3 times. 6 is going to appear 7 times. So forth, so on. Okay? So, nobody has time to sit there and do that. So what we're going to do is, we can just say, okay, if 3 appears one time, then that means I'm only going to add 3 once into the sum. If 4 only appears one time, I'm going to add that 4 only one time. 5 is going to appear 3 times. So if I add 5 3 times, that means I'm adding in 5 times 3, which is technically 15. 6 times 7 is 42. 7 times 15 is 105. 8 times 8 is 64. 9 times 5 is 45. So there, those are my products. So basically, that's what I'm adding up. So my frequency is the total amount of numbers that I have. So if I add all these numbers in my frequency list up, I will end up getting 40. If I add all of my numbers in my product up, or the numbers so that I can find my sum, the number that I would get is 278. So if I want to find my mean, it's going to be equal to 278 divided by 40. And 278, excuse me, let me get out of this menu. 278 divided by 40 is equal to 6.95. So now let's look at the median. So median, remember, you're lining your numbers up from least to greatest, and you're chopping them off from each end until you get to the middle. So in order to think about that, we're not really looking at the data values here. That's going to be important, but that's going to be at the end. We're trying to look at the frequency. So remember, 3 appears one time, 4 appears one time, 5 appears 3 times, 6 appears 7 times, 7 appears 15 times, 8 appears 8 times, and 9 appears 5 times. So we're chopping off from end to end. So I'm going to look at my frequencies. So if I say, okay, let me chop off these 5 9s, that means I have to chop off 5 of the smaller values. So I'm going to chop off 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm going to chop those off. Then I say, okay, I have 7 6s. So I'm going to chop off the 7 6s. Now they're all gone. And if I chop off 7 on one side, I have to chop off 7 on the other side. So that's going to leave me with 1 8. And then if I chop off the 1 8, the last 8, that means I have to chop off a 7, which means I'm going to be left with 14 more 7s. Because 7 is going to be written 14 times after everything else was chopped off, I know that my median is going to be, it's going to be 7, because that's going to be the only number that's in the middle. Okay? So, last but not least, we want to find our mode. Mode is the number that appears the most. So, if we look here, we have the numbers 3 through 9. If you look at the frequencies, that'll tell you how many times it appears. So, our frequency, the highest frequency we see is 15, and that's the number 7. So our mode is also 7. So let's do it by the calculator. We're going to type these numbers in. My data values are going to go in L1. And my frequencies are going to go in L2. Okay. So if I go to stat calc, I press number 1 for one var stat. So the only thing different is, anytime you have frequencies, you have to make sure you put something in for the frequency list. The regular list is for your data values. So that's coming from L1, that's the numbers 3 through 9. And for the frequency list, what I'm telling the calculator is, okay, I have the numbers 3 through 9. However, the amount of times that each of them show are going to be in the L2 column. So I have to press second and then 2 for L2. Because remember, the frequencies was in L2. So as we can see here, the mean is the X with the bar on it. That's 6.95. So I know I'm right. And then we have the median, which is MED, which is 7. So I know that that is also correct. And of course, mode, just by looking at it, I know that I'm right there. Okay. Last but not least, as you can see here, we have an example. Our last example, we have data ranges that are intervals, or what we like to call classes. In order to find the mean and the median specifically, you cannot have a range of values. You have to have a central point or a central data value. So what we normally do is we call that the midpoint or the mid interval. Okay? Mid interval, midpoint or mid interval, they mean the same thing. The mid interval is the halfway point. So in order to find the mid interval of an interval or a class, you have to add the lower and the upper bounds together. So I'm going to do 50 to 59. So I add 50 plus 59 together, and then I divide it by 2. That tells me what the central value is, or the middle value is. So that's going to be 54.5. Same thing I'm do for, you can do on your calculator for the 60s and the 70s, the 80s, and 90s. Always check your work with a calculator or by hand to make sure you're correct. All right. So now I have all my mid intervals there. So now I want to look at my frequencies. Frequencies tells me how many numbers I have. So if I add up all of these numbers here, I will get 25. If I add all of my mid intervals up, I will get 372.5. So now what I need to do is I need to find the product, because remember, you have to multiply your numbers together. So before we do that, I want to make sure I clarify something really quickly. So we see that for the data range of 50 to 59, we see that we have a frequency of 2. So what this is saying is I have two numbers that are between that are or are also in between 50 and 59. So I don't know whether the numbers are 54. I don't know whether it's 57, whether it's 51. I don't know what number it is. All I know is that number has to be in that interval. I have two of them. So we can't say 2 times 50 to 59. That makes no sense. So we have to multiply the frequency by the mid interval. The mid interval is like your central value to represent the entire class, so to speak. Okay? So when we multiply 2 times 54.5, we get 109. And then if we multiply 3 times 64.5, we get 193.5. And I'm just going to multiply the frequencies by the midpoints or mid intervals. Okay? So here we get 596. Then we get 929.5. And then we get 94.5, of course. And then if we add them all together, we get 1,922.5. So now let's go find the mean. Okay. In order to find the mean, we take the entire total of everything. So that's going to be 1,922.5. And we're going to divide it by however many numbers we're supposed to have, which is 25. And when we divide, we end up getting 76.9. The next thing that we want to do is find the median. And remember, median is we're crossing out the frequency. So let's say if I cross out 1 here, I'm going to cross out 1 from the other side. It leaves me with 1. And then if I want to cross out this one, if I cross out this one, that's going to make that 10. Cross these out, that's going to end up being crossed out, and that's going to leave me with 7 here. Of course, if I cross that 7 out and cross 7 here, that's going to leave me with 1 more left here. So my actual interval, or excuse me, median, is going to be the mid interval of that interval, and we already know that the middle number in between 70 and 79 is going to be 74.5. Okay. And then last but not least, we want to find the mode. Mode means most, and as we can see, if we look at the frequency, I have 11 here for the highest frequency, and that is from 80 to 89. Okay. So make sure you understand that for your mode, you can have a class, you can have an interval for your mode, but you have to use the mid intervals for your mean and your median. Okay. Last but not least, let's put in the calculator so that we know what we're doing. So instead of putting your range, you can't put 50 to 59 in there because the dashes are represent either by negative or subtraction. So we have to use the mid intervals. So I'm gonna put the mid intervals for the data set down here. And then I'm going to put the frequencies. And then I'm going to press stat, go over to calc, press number 1. My list 1 is my mid intervals on my data set, mid values. And then I'm going to put my frequencies in L2. Press calculate, and I end up getting, yes, my mean is 76.9. My median is 74.5, and I already know just by looking at my mode that yes, 80 to 89 is the biggest section. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Send me an email. Make sure you write it down so that you won't forget, and I will clarify later.